Hello, you multi-megapixel misfits, and thank you to Terror Tower for that malt mention. Welcome to my channel. I'm Ralphie in the Bothy, somewhere in the Irish Sea, and I review whisky and have done for quite a long time now. This makes me not an expert. I would never ever claim to be that, but it does make me really quite experienced, particularly as a buyer of whisky, in selecting whisky, and inevitably over time we do gain more experience in avoiding mistakes. And the primary purpose of my channel is to share my experience with you so that you gain experience that much quicker and have less disappointing purchase experiences. So, welcome to Ralphie Review 1035. I am reviewing an independent bottle. It's the final bottling of a short series in the middle of summer 2024, where I'm just reminding you of the purpose, the value, the presence, and the dynamics of independent bottlers. And I have an independent bottling here from Adelphi Distillery, who are independent bottlers who also happen to own Ardnamurchan Distillery. And it wasn't that long ago, I'm thinking up to about 10 years ago, about 2014, was when prices of Adelphi whisky started to steeply increase, and it became a premium independent bottler. Now, in the 1990s, because I was there and I remember it well, you used to get some fabulous quality whisky at a reasonable price. But then they decided they would build a distillery and they had to finance it. And of course, if you can avoid bank loans, that is very, very useful thing to do, because it's not so much the money that's being loaned to a distillery to get up and running. It's the convoluted contracts that come with it that give the borrower, i.e. the banks or the independent financial consultant people, a disproportionate amount of power over the business. That's the real issue. So Adelphi have absolutely done it the right way round, and their timing was perfect, because despite raising their prices, the demand for quality independent bottlings was definitely growing, and they benefited from that. But in the meantime, they still made some accessible, available, more budget-conscious whiskies available, including the Dancy Man series, and this, the Breath of series. This is Breath of Highlands, 12-year-old cask strength whisky, 52.7% alcohol. And I'll just give you the details once I get my steampunker, because small labels mean small writing. It's just the way it goes. This is why you need to invest in one of these. They're incredibly useful. Distilled in the Highlands 2007, bottled 2019, unchill filtered, one of 556 bottles. Now, either this has been a single cask butt, but more likely a couple of butts put together, or 3 hogsheads, something like that, 2 or 3 hogsheads, to give a very small batch of an undisclosed Highland distillery. They don't name the distillery. Frankly, it doesn't matter so much to me, because if you know the name of the distillery, you find you're looking for those distillery characteristics, and you might not find them because the whisky's been matured in other whisky casks, and it's fudged the signature. So it can be a bit of a decoy and a bit of deceptiveness on our own behalf, because it's just the way you get it with whisky, particularly Scotch whisky. But in this instance, as you can see, this is natural colour, I'm pretty sure it is. There's that colour, even if it's slightly less than that colour, why would you even bother adding caramel colourant? That's really not Adelphi's style. Unchill filtered, yep, a little bit of Scotch mist creeps in. But what have we got here? And before I actually kind of go into the specific smell taste review, the price of these whiskies is definitely going up significantly. You're looking at £80 a bottle or £90 a bottle, because inevitably over time you've got a certain amount of brand association, even by informed customers rather than passive consumers. And it's informed customers that are going to be looking at this. So whether it be Breath of Islay, Breath of Speyside, Breath of Lowlands, because there is an ongoing series of bottlings here. Look at the price, because with brand recognition creeping into smaller bottlers and independent bottlers, the name gets reflected in the price regardless of the quality. So be aware of that. So on the nose, lots of mature vintage fruitcake. We're getting touches of leather. We're getting seasoned old cask. We're getting notes of original sherry cask rather than a created sherry cask. In other words, this cask on the nose appears that it's actually matured sherry rather than being used with sherry product, right, sherry formula, to mature the cask, season the cask, condition the cask before the contents go on to make balsamic vinegar, which is, I recommend balsamic vinegar in your salad and in your pasta. Really nice stuff. Interesting nose, it's cough lozenges. It's quite dry as well. I'm getting a lot of tannins coming through here. And I'm also picking up in the nose a slight dryness. So let's go to the taste here, and it's high strength. So first taste is a neat taste, just a tiny sip, just to help us get our bearings. Not a lot of sweetness. This is a dry malt. Dark plums. Raisins, rich in raisins, and also it has a distinctive, particularly after the arrival, you go into the development and you're nowhere near the finish, but you soon realise there's a big flat sour note going on in here. This cask has been left unfilled for a length of time. So, taste: lime pickle, big raisins. It's a sherry monster, but it's not a big happy sherry monster. It's a little bit of a sour sherry monster. So I'm going to have to add water here. I want to gain access to this, and I'm adding a full teaspoonful, right? Full teaspoonful, 5 millilitres, to help cut through the presence of the alcohol, bring it down to give me more accessibility to what's in the glass. It certainly helps, but it exposes the true nature of the whisky, which is quite woody and astringent. Ironically, you will find this in original sherry casks that have been used for maturing sherry. They tend to get reused a lot, and when they're discarded because there's just basically too much activity getting imposed onto the sherry for too long, and that's what you get. You might think that with sherry you want that activity to mellow and help oxidization, but there's too much of a good thing going on, and it comes down to the singularity of the wood used in the casks or cask themselves. And in this instance, You're getting a whisky which is not for a novice. It's for an experienced palate who will know that it's a little bit harsh. And this is one of these bottles, you gotta let it breathe, because your first taste, your first connectivity, it won't be particularly positive. Another thing you want to do is decant this. Give the bottle a shake it up, get the oxidization in, because first taste of this, it's really quite uptight. The signature of the Highland malt is frankly lost to the cask. The cask is seriously dominating the whole event here. It's not a bad experience, but it is not the best experience either. It's the singularity of the experience that's coming through. And really, it's entirely delivered in the cask's terms. I'm being tactful about this, as you know. Adding water, dry, lots of tea notes, over brewed British tea. Tannin heavy, oh my goodness, big time. Big tannin heavy. The freshness of the raisin notes are absolutely fine. Do you know, this is why I recommend, if you're just starting off in whiskey and you've just been at it a few years, don't buy these bottlings, because they're going to shock your palate. This is astringent, it's bitter, it's sour. The sour's flatness, the flat sour. The cask has been sitting a bit, but it's still a relatively fresh cask. It's not completely gone. It's somewhere in the middle. And what you're getting is quite an angry, unsettled single malt. But it's interesting, it's engaging, it's certainly complex, there's no doubt about it. But it's one that you really need to leave to rest for several months before you come back to it. Let it really, really settle down. On the nose is great. The nose is fantastic, real old school. Fantastic nose. Slight, musty, leathery, Dunnagey Warehouse, classic sherry cask nose. Unmistakable, unforgettable, fantastic. So when we get to the taste, then we discover the cask is just done too much. It's just gone too far. And this is in 12 years. This is a very active cask. That suggests to me that these are at least two hogsheads rather than a sherry butt, which would be, because of its greater volume, be less proactive over those 12 years. Because there's more proactivity, far more cask dominance in the 12 years. At 10 years, it probably would have been fine. At 12 years, the cask's completely taken over and it's absolutely dominating the malt into submission. There you have it. Water helps, but also water exposes further the domination by the cask. What's the solution here? What are we going to do with this? I'll tell you what I'm going to do, and I'll leave it as, I'll give the malt mark first, and then I'm going to offer you suggestions. In fact, I'll make it an extras. Suggestions for accessing your bottle, accessing a difficult bottle. That'll be in Ralphie Review 1034 extras coming along shortly. But first of all, let's give this a mark. It's a bruiser, but it needs prepared. This bottle needs to be managed. 78 out of 100. That's my malt mark. And what am I going to do? Hey, if we buy this, it means we've got other bottles open. Tiny drop of Port Charlotte 10-year-old. Remember, golden rule, less is more. I'm hardly noticing the presence of the Port Charlotte. It's improving slightly, but I'm going to have to add even more. This is a monster. It's a monster, sherry monster. But not a particularly friendly one. But it has its appeal to the real whiskey aficionado who is prepared to invest time, experience and effort into taming this beast. And there you have it. I've started already. I will continue to provide you more information in my next review, my extras, as to what you do when you have these bottles. Now we're starting to get there. Very medicinal, by the way, even more medicinal than when I started. But the tannins are being challenged. The heavy shovelfuls, tractor loads of tannins that have come out of these casks are being addressed by the peatiness. See you soon.